Welcome to the Asian Dating Podcast. I'm your host, May Buchenhagen. I am the founder of Two Asian Matchmakers, a boutique company that started in Los Angeles, and now I help men all across the US find a lovely Asian partner. So if you are an Asian woman who's looking to find love, please go to twoasianmatchmakers.com and fill out a profile with me so I know where to find you. This week, I have Bex Burton. She is my guest. She is a trauma-informed certified life coach and joyful living specialist. She helps midlife women find nourishment and meaning through connection, color, and play. Of course, I'm going to put all of her information in the show notes. But welcome to the show, Bex. How are you?
Thank you, May. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here. I'm great today. I'm feeling really good and happy to be here.
Good. Well, before we jump in, I know you're from Boulder, Colorado. That's where you're out of right now. And I'm in near Colorado Springs. So we're in the same time zone, which is great. And I just have so many questions for you. But first, starting off is I said that you help midlife women find nourishment and meaning through connection, color, and play. What do you mean by that, actually?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, for the last 10 years, I have been a dating and relationship coach. And so I help single women attract and grow healthy, lasting love. A lot of that is through energetics, how we feel about ourselves, how we show up in the world, how we relate with others. And a lot of that has to do with strategy, positioning ourselves and making sure that we're putting our best foot forward and making sure that we are attracting the right kind of attention. So that's the connection piece of that trio. And my background is in art and dance and performance. So there's a big creative streak alive in me, and I've been seeking how to weave that part of myself into my business. And I've recently become certified as a personal color analyst. So, and this is a service that I do offer my dating clients as well. But this is an opportunity for an individual to understand the collection of colors that harmonize with their personal essence. So when I say their personal essence, I'm talking about the beauty that is gifted to you by God's hand. Your natural hair, your skin, and your eyes all create a color palette. And so based on that, I look at your hair, your skin, your eyes, and a little bit of your soul and your spirit, and create and offer you a color palette of colors that really vibrate with your essence and harmonize with your natural beauty. And I do it for men and for women both. And then play, my background in dance was based mainly in hula hoops and circus performance. And these days I'm deeply rooted in roller skating and learning how to roller skate dance. And, movement has been such an important part of my life, but not just movement. And I think that there's a lot of benefit through engaging in movement that is non-competitive and simply joyful based, and so inviting my clients and students to mindful, playful movement activities helps them deepen the connection with themselves. For anybody who's on a journey in love, it helps solidify our relationship with self. It helps us build confidence and self-esteem. And it also helps us step into the beginner's mind and, not take ourselves so seriously. And I think all of that really feeds into not only attracting healthy, lasting love, but also growing it and maintaining it, because if we're talking about building a long-term relationship, there's a bit of humility that we need to bring to it. There's a bit of play and non-attachment that we need to bring to it. And so the lessons from roller skating or hula hooping or other joyful based movement practices really feed into the lessons that we need for healthy, lasting love.
So, do you encourage your clients to go pursue these hula hooping or roller skating or something fun on their own, or you're suggesting these for dates with their dates?
That's such a great question. Well, with my individual clients, I work with them to find a modality that works for them. Not everybody is going to want to strap on roller skates or get into a hula hoop, and I totally accept that. Um, at the same time, gosh, whenever I see somebody or hear somebody asking for a great date idea in the middle of winter, I'm like, go ice skating together, because it, there's really something about, I mentioned beginner's mind just a moment ago, and there's research behind when two people enter into a new practice with beginner's mind together, there's a bond that happens. It helps create connection. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be roller skating or hula hooping. Those are the modalities that work for me. Um, but I definitely encourage my clients to not only individually but also on their dates to engage in these fun, playful, movement-based activities.
Do you have trouble convincing someone who's doing a corporate job, or he's in a suit and tie, or she's in nice suits for work, to kind of get to this playful level in their personal lives? Because I could see them being really maybe rigid or like, what, Bex, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to do that. Even though I personally love roller skating, roller blading, and, not to brag, but I'm pretty good on the hula hoop too. But I could see some people are being like, no, that's not for me. Like, what if those two activities aren't something that they want to do? Like, what other things can they do that can make them be a playful person?
Sure, absolutely. Well, the playfulness often comes with the approach. So, first and foremost, most of the people who are attracted to me to work with me understand that this is going to be something of what they get. So there is a bit of a willingness, and that is also something that I check for in my intake. If there's willingness to get outside of their comfort zone, to be a little silly and a little irreverent, and if they don't have that, then I may recommend them, to work with somebody else. But if there is this sense that they want to explore beyond their comfort zone, they want to try new things, they recognize that how they've been living their life or how they've been approaching life hasn't necessarily been working for them in all aspects of their life thus far, then there tends to be a willingness to do this exploration. And what I led with is it doesn't necessarily have to be the modality that we engage in that's playful. I mean, I certainly am choosing these because I did my time in distance running. I did my time in cycling, and I haven't tried rock climbing, but I've done a lot of the very I don't know, what's the word, signature boulder activities, I
Yeah.
guess. And even in those activities, um, it really, we have an opportunity to bring playfulness into it with our mindset and how we approach the activity. So, for example, I'm working with a gentleman right now who's a distance runner. And one of the things that we talk about is bringing the element of gamification into his run.
Mhm.
So for example, like if he's on a practice run and he's doing alternating sprints and a slower pace, we do that in training. Um, there's an opportunity to kind of play with, all right, if I sprinted for a minute and a half, can my next sprint be 2 minutes long? Can my next sprint be, or can my slow down, can I do that backwards? Or can I do that um, singing a song? Just bringing new elements into whatever we engage in for movement is the way that we can introduce play. And then, if we become accustomed to that and we enjoy that practice, then we might be a little bit more open to some of the more fringe-based playful activities.
I could totally see that. Being a distance runner myself before,
Mhm.
I used to be more of a social runner. Like, I'm not running for time. I have a watch that I still wear now to track my steps, but I really love stopping and taking a photo or a selfie or the cows that I run across or whatever. If I see beautiful horses or a stream or something like that, and just to take the time to pause and do something out of the ordinary, which is totally fine, right? I mean, we should do those things in our life.
A lot of people engage with these apps out of boredom or for distraction or to fill time. They may not be necessarily looking for the same kind of relationship that you're looking for. And a lot of the people that hire, you and me are looking for long-term committed monogamous relationships with integrated lives and a co-created future. And again, not everybody is looking for that online, and especially the people who are just on there swiping out of boredom or distraction. So that really complicates things.
What are 2 or 3 online dating apps that you really like for your clients to be on if they are looking for a long-term relationship or a partner?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I know the listeners are going to hate my answer. Because it could inspire some eye roll energy. My theory is that our online dating apps are tools. And the best tool is, or the most effective tool is going to be how we use it, the skills that we bring to the tool. I think your demographic really plays a lot into which app is best for the individual. I mean, the bottom line is, does it amplify the joy of the experience?
Mhm.
So another client who is a distance runner, she got into the practice of doing a handstand at every mile marker. And she,
Oh,
and again, she wasn't running for time either. So
yeah.
she'd hold a handstand for 30 seconds or a minute. And then on occasion, I think she told me she was like walking on her hands, so
Wow.
um,
That sounds hard, not
it
fun.
does sound hard. It's not something I'm going to do, but it worked
Right.
for her.
Yeah.
But back to
I
your
get it.
question though, like it really, I think it really just comes down to, does it amplify the joy of the experience?
Yeah.
So for me, like, um, yeah, bringing music in to different activities
Mhm.
that might otherwise be mundane, like folding laundry. I'm always listening to music and singing along when I'm folding laundry.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're into helping people with dating. That why is dating so much harder today than it's ever been, in your opinion?
That's such a good question. And it's interesting because I recently went back and watched the very first episode of Sex in the City, and it's interesting because today I'm in a number of different online dating groups, just as a coach and an eavesdropper, and taking notes. And the things that the women in that show, or the things that were written into that show in the script, are literally the very same things that people complain about in dating today. There's a lot of like similarity. The difference is the online dating space has changed so dramatically since its inception, since it first came out. Um, and that's not to say that people don't meet and fall in love through online dating apps every single day. They do. They absolutely do. But the truth is that when we solely rely on our digital based dating apps, we're limiting ourselves, because a digital interaction is very different than an in-person interaction. A digital interaction doesn't always have the substance or the nuance that an in-person interaction has. So there's a lot that can be missed when we're dating online. Also, and this is in the dating coaching that I do, I consider myself a communication specialist. A lot of my work and my degree is in communications. So, and I've done a lot of study in communications. And what we find when we're in a digital based conversation, it's not really a conversation. We're exchanging one-way monologues back and forth, until we take the step to have a real-time conversation, either through phone or video chat. And again, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of things that can be overlooked or missed when we have these exchange of monologues. One of the things that I tell my dating clients is, if you're asking questions, my goodness, limit your message to one question per message. Because if you ask five questions, you'll be lucky if two of those questions get answered, and then they're on. So somebody who's not in a major metropolitan area may not have great success using an app where there's not a critical mass in their area on the same app. Somebody in that kind of area might do better, might find more success using like Facebook dating, where many of their neighbors and the people, their peers in their local area are going to already be on Facebook, and that might be their first go-to. Whereas somebody who's in a more major metropolitan area might find more success on, say, Hinge or Bumble. But the swipe-based apps with limited text also present their own challenges, right? There's actually research. Scott Galway, who's a marketing professor at NYU, he mentions that swipe-based apps have reduced dating candidates to these like two-dimensional parameters. For women, it's how attractive they are. And for men, it's what is their potential to garner resources in the future? So for those of us who are on these swipe-based apps, there's just a higher potential for immediate rejection based on these two-dimensional parameters. There's like less room for nuance. There's less room for persistence. Back before dating apps, persistence was a big factor in the game, and we don't get a lot of that so much anymore. What we do have is the paradox of choice, where we're far quicker to release or reject somebody than, because we believe that there's just this abundance of candidates to choose from, when that's not actually the truth.
Would you say that if you're an attractive man or woman, that the swiping apps are for you, but if you're less attractive, then maybe you should do more like Match.com or eHarmony or something like that, where people get to know you and your personality comes shining through more?
I think that everybody benefits from a multifaceted approach to dating. I don't believe anybody, whether they are attractive or not conventionally attractive, should be relying solely on online dating apps. I think that everybody who is looking for a life partner should be equally, if not more, out in the world, meeting new people, striking up conversations, engaging with people in real life. And that doesn't mean just going to singles events. That means talking to somebody in the grocery store. That means looking up from your phone, asking somebody a question at the post office, bringing somebody into a collective experience. I remember when I lived in New York, there would be days where the skies would open up and it would pour just out of nowhere, right? And New York being a very pedestrian society, all of a sudden, like if you're going from point A to point B and it starts pouring, you'd have like a collection of like a dozen people under a hotel awning for a good 15 or 20 minutes, just sort of held captive there. And these are the kind of experiences where at one time in our history, those would inspire conversations, those would inspire connection. However, today, if we look at the same scenario, at least 9 out of those 12 people are going to be on their phone.
I know.
Self-isolating and going inward, under the guise of connection, right? Scrolling through their social media apps or their email, like who's trying to reach out to me, who's trying to connect with me, who am I getting messages from? When in fact, there's this captive audience right in front of you, at least until the rain passes.
That's very true. I mean, when we talk about dating, dating is a skill. And if you don't mindfully think about these things, you're going to miss out on somebody who can be your person. So it's like people going and having this focus on, you know what, I'm going to do dating apps. That's going to be 50% of my dating adventures and journey, but yet the other 50% should be, okay, maybe I'll do 25% singles events that I find on Eventbrite or Meetup or Facebook events. But I'm going to join, pickleball. I'm going to join a softball group. I'm going to join a bowling league or something where they can meet people that aren't necessarily singles there, but there might be singles there. So I guess dating is a strategy and it is a skill that we need to learn if we want to be better at it, right? Because we can't just sit at home and think, okay, I'm texting people. This is called dating. I mean, if you're not out there meeting people, you are actually not dating. You're just sitting texting strangers, but that could lead to nowhere. So, based on what you know today, how would you give dating tips to a 20 something, 30 something year old single person in a big city or not? Could be like a Boulder or Denver or Colorado Springs. What advice would you give them if they wanted to increase their dating chances of meeting somebody?
Yeah, sure. Well, I will preface that most of the people that I work with are 40 and over, midlife.
Okay.
Um, but I don't necessarily think that that really changes things so much around strategy. It changes things slightly. But for somebody who's in their 20s or 30s looking for a life partner, the real world practice is really engaging in the activities and the topics that really call to you, that you're really passionate about, that nourish you and fill your cup, because that's going to contribute again to your self-esteem, your sense of confidence. The bonus is that you are around like-minded people and you can strike up conversations where there's a higher likelihood of resonance, of having similar approaches to life, or values. For example, if somebody's really into mindfulness and meditation and they join a sangha, I mean, my goodness, like you're already surrounded by like-minded people with a similar approach to life, or people that want to approach life in this way. And even if your future person is not in that group, every single person in that group has a network of people, that the possibility is just really limitless when we think about that. If, say, you and I meet, and I'm looking for a partner, but everybody that I meet at this event is a woman, every single one of those women has a network of friends, family, colleagues, and there's an opportunity for us to kind of help each other out. Like, who do you know? There's even parties that are coming back, I think, into the consciousness of I think it's like I forgot what they're called. It's either like bring your reject or bring your spare or something. They're
Yeah.
terrible names for these parties. But the idea is, hey, we're all these women are going to get together. And the request is that you bring a guy that you went out on a date with, that you think is a really decent guy, but he's just not your
Yeah.
guy.
Like
And
recycle the guys or
yeah,
something.
totally.
Which I think is brilliant. I mean, make it fun, make it kind of
Totally.
cheesy, but yet the bottom line is you are open to it and you're being playful about it, right? So
Absolutely.
you're going to this thinking it's a new thing, it's a fun thing, and that you're all like-minded. You're all in your 30s or 40s and you're looking for somebody. That I feel like the clients that I have the most success with are the ones that come to me and say, you know what, I need help with this. And I actually am looking for somebody. So, somebody who says that they're looking for somebody and they admit they want help, those are the ones who actually get help, who actually finds a partner because they put that out in the universe that they're looking and that they are admitting and being vulnerable and saying that, you know what, I do want to find somebody. I'm going to go to this cheesy party and go to this recycle the men party and just find somebody amazing, right? Because everyone who's coming is bringing someone who's amazing. It just wasn't the person for them.
Yeah.
So,
And what you're describing, May, is what I call like the energy of love.
yeah.
When we have that openness, when we have that willingness to be vulnerable, to the willingness to say, I don't know everything,
Yeah.
the willingness to say, what I've been doing hasn't been working, I need help. We're inviting other people in. We're saying, like, I can't do this alone. And that is like exactly the vibration of love, because again, fast forward to the relationship that you want to be in. You and I are both in long-term committed partnerships. You and I both know what that takes. It takes a sense of humility. It takes a sense of patience and willingness to be wrong or willingness to not know things, And so if we can adopt that in our dating practice, my goodness, we're practicing the skills for long-term healthy love.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are the three main practices that are critical to modern dating success?
Yeah. Well, you touched on it in your last comment. And the first one for me is your vision. And that's being crystal clear on why you're dating, what kind of relationship you want. Because that is not, we assume that we all want the same kind of relationship, but that is, there are many to choose from, to fit differing lifestyles. Knowing what your standards are, your non-negotiables, knowing what your boundaries are. And then, yes, also knowing some of the qualities that you would like in your partner.
Yeah.
The second is our mindset. And again, we touched on that in our last segment there. Adopting a loving mindset that withstands the ups and downs of the dating practice, because it is not easy. A lot of people will tell you that, oh, just put your mind to it or visualize what you want. But the truth is that it takes a lot more than that, because we will get rejected and we will get disappointed. So our mindset really plays a big part into this, and not only approaching the process with the lens of love that we're talking about, that humility, the willingness to receive help, the willingness to offer benefit of the doubt, but also how we relate with ourselves and how we hold ourselves through challenge, how we soothe ourselves through trying times. So that's mindset. And then the third is our skill set. And this is where we invest in building long-term relationship. These are the building blocks of long-term relationship. Like if we don't have relational skills, then it doesn't matter how good the match is, or where we met online or in person. It's a relationship without mutual relational skills is going to fall apart. And that's a tricky one, because not many of us are taught that as young people. We're certainly not taught in schools. Many of us are not taught by our family of origin. And a lot of us were never even modeled that by family of origin or, the adjacent models to us as young people. So I know for myself, like I've really had to dig deep and invest a lot of time, energy, focus, and attention on learning relational skills. And I will say hands down, that is why that I have a 13-year relationship with my person.
So let's say you just meet somebody out and about and they don't have a lot of dating experience and they didn't have good role models, like their parents aren't good communicators or their parents aren't together anymore, or they have friends, but they don't really break down the walls and start talking to them about stuff like this: life, love, finding a partner. Where do you suggest he or she go? Or are there certain books that you think they should read? Are there certain things that they should be watching that might help them, like with your journey of finding your husband 13 years ago? Like, where should someone start if they just don't know where to start to be better at dating or communicating and to learn about how to date?
Yeah, that's a big question with so many answers for sure. Um, I think for anybody looking for long-term, healthy, lasting love, for partnership, the very first stop is introspection and our relationship with ourself, self-awareness. It's actually the first of 5 skills that I work with my clients on. And in self-awareness, there are so many points of self-awareness. our understanding what is happening in our inner landscape at any moment, our emotional experience, our needs, our boundaries, our intuition, our desires. What are our values? What is our attachment style? What are our triggers and our wounds? How do we react to certain things? What sensitivities do we have that make us react? Some people call those buttons. What are our buttons? Even knowing our own personality types, whether that be Myers-Briggs or Enneagram or even your astrological sign. The self-awareness piece is so key and foundational that if we haven't already done that work, that is the first stop for sure. And then beyond that, I think that there's, again, this kind of goes back to mindset, adopting the mindset of test and iterate or trial and error, where it took me a long time to understand this as like an independent lone wolf kind of gal, but we can't grow our relational skills in a silo. We can't do this in a vacuum on our own. So the way that we learn and grow in relationships is through relationships. So we have to be in practice of this. And then it doesn't have to be romantic relationships too. We can use our familiar, our peer relationships, our professional relationships as sort of data, data collecting. We can't do it in a vacuum. We have to learn how to be in relationship through relationships. And also part of that is adopting the mindset that there's no such thing as perfection. We have to really embrace the practice of self-compassion, being gentle with ourselves, accepting that we're human individuals who are perfectly imperfect. And there's a sense of openness to this process. So you asked about books. I have a reading list that I give to my clients. It's 10 books, certainly a very small fraction of what's available out there. But one book that I consistently recommend again and again, over and over for the last 10 years and beyond has been If the Buddha Dated by Charlotte Castle, PhD. Just talking about that book gives me goosebumps because it changed the way that I date. It changed my life. And it's changed the lives in the way that many of my clients have dated. It introduces a lot of Buddhist philosophy. You don't have to be a Buddhist to, adopt these philosophies, but it introduces the ideas of equanimity and non-attachment and, giving ourselves grace. And, in a lot of ways, these are handbooks for life, handbooks for humanity, not a religious dogma specifically, and then, I mean, there are so many wonderful resources out there. It would be difficult for me to name many of them, but when I work with clients, I do give those recommendations based on the individual need. Nonviolent Communication, the book by Marshall Rosenberg, The Book and Practice is also another top recommendation that I give to all of my clients. I work with my clients in communicating in that specific format because it offers the highest level of connection and the lowest level of confrontation. It's not foolproof for sure, but it is a primary modality that I use in the work that I do, and it's another recommendation that I give.
I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that there are so many resources out there for people. And I hope someone who listens to this and realize, you know what, I could use a different level of help. I could reach out to Bex, or I could reach out to anybody that can help them with what they're struggling with or what they need help with. It can't hurt, right? It's kind of like therapy. I feel like everybody could use therapy. It's not going to hurt you. It just has you talking more about your feelings and getting your self-esteem up and getting some direction sometimes in life. And I feel like if someone reaches out to you that they need help with dating, and this is some of the exercises you can go through with them, and if they even read 5 of the 10 books you suggest, I'm sure they'll get 1 or 2 golden nuggets that can really help accelerate their love life or help them with that. So before I
Absolutely.
let you go, I want to ask you, so what are the skills necessary to attract and grow healthy, lasting love? I know we touched on all that already, but if you can summarize it for us real quick, that would be great.
Absolutely. It'd be my pleasure. Well, the first one we did touch on, self-awareness. That is always, always, always for me going to be the first step. And, if a client comes to me with a decade of therapy and a lot of self-awareness, we may not spend as much time in that department. But somebody who hasn't done a lot of introspection or a lot of like connection with their self and understanding why they do the things they do. Like one thing I wanted to say about therapy, I think it's so valuable for anybody on a journey in love to have some therapy to understand where they came from and why they are the way they are. And then coaching takes that information and helps us move forward with it and integrate it into our life in healthy ways. So self-awareness, the second skill, emotional intelligence. We're talking about long-term relationship. If we don't have an understanding of our emotional experience, if we don't have the skills to communicate that effectively or the skills to regulate that in order to communicate, then we're operating at a deficit that can be really damaging to the connection. The next two skills kind of go hand in hand, but I approach it in the order of empathy and compassion first, to extend an understanding of our fellow human being, to walk a day in their shoes, maybe not literally, but to at least put on the perspective of who this other person is, understand where they've come from, why they might be the way they are, and to offer a little bit of compassion. There's a term called equity that is floating around the conscious space lately. And not many people know what that is. And my understanding of it, and which may be still very limited, I'm still learning, but it's the understanding that not everybody has the same starting line in life. Somebody who's grown up in a healthy nuclear family with two parents and two siblings and two dogs and a white picket fence, and they're going to come to relationship with a very different composition than somebody who's grown up in a home that was full of challenge, full of chaos, violence, addiction. And our therapy is such a great way of understanding our family of origin. And again, like how that's played into who we are today. And I think that anybody who has suffered challenge or suffering in their life has more access to empathy and compassion because they can identify a similar moment of time in their life, or they can identify similar feelings that they've had. So empathy and compassion. And then vulnerability is skill number 4. We're programmed to believe that vulnerability was weakness and that there was something wrong with admitting that our feelings are hurt or something isn't right or that we have needs. But in truth, when we're dealing with healthy relationship, vulnerability is a point of connection. Vulnerability is how we connect. And the 5th skill I will call skillful communication. And that is, the way that we use our words. We can create deep connection through our words. We can create damaging disconnection through our words. And if we're not aware of the impact of our words, then then we definitely need to study some communication skills and practice the ways that we create connection through communication. Oftentimes when in dating or relationships and something isn't going quite right, emotions are high, there's conflict, we can say some pretty damaging things. We can be accusatory, we can be judgmental, we can be critical. And in that space, there's really an opportunity to get curious, to slow down, to soften, to get curious and say, how can I understand this person better? And ask questions. Or if there's a need not being expressed, how can I express this in a way that doesn't create more disconnect or push my partner further away, but how can I bring them into my reality and communicate a need and get positive results?
Yeah. I really like what you said is the slowing down part, especially when we're in a heated argument or you're in a fight and you're just going on and on and on. You're like, oh, let me take a step back. Like, let me just pretend there's a camera filming this and I'm going to see later, like, how am I going to act right now to make sure that I don't say something that I'm going to regret? Because you're right, words are very, very damaging, even if it's in the heat of the moment and then you guys make up and you say, I'm sorry, but they heard that. You can't just strike that from, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. And any last dating tip you have for the listeners out there?
I would love to share my mantra. My mantra is that love is a practice. And we often fixate on getting it right. We often punish ourselves for getting it wrong. And the truth is that there's really no right and wrong, but we practice every day. We make choices that build more connection, that bring us closer to the people that we love. We're not going to be perfect at it because we're human. And the best that we can do is practice and understand that this work is practice.
I agree. I agree. Well, ladies out there, if you're single, I would love for you to join my database at 2asianmatchmakers.com. Please subscribe to this channel. Would love to hear your comments, questions, and I will make sure I reach out to Bex for any questions she needs to answer. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Asian Dating Podcast, and have a great day. Thank you, Bex. Bye, everybody.